All right, take two. First rule of the channel, we not talk about the channel. Second rule of the channel, this is not legal advice. So, you boys like Mexico. We're getting into the wide receiver 3 range of our rankings, and these are the guys that are going to have that widest range of outcomes. Uh, obviously, in this case, we're looking for league winners. So some of these guys that I'm just going to take off my board because like they're the highest they can get me is wide receiver 2. If that's your thing, and that's fine. You can win leagues by drafting wide receiver 3 and getting wide receiver 2, especially in deeper leagues. Some of these guys are going to have more value in those deeper leagues. In those shallower leagues, I would probably stay away from them. It just depends how you're going to build your roster. Some of these guys will talk about like why they would end up having more or less value down the line, but again, we're getting after it. We're trying to find these league winners. So last year I talked about Nico Collins before the season started and said like anybody that has the ability to be the number one in their offense is going to be fantasy relevant. And so Nico Collins was going like even undrafted in a lot of leagues, and the tea leaves were on him for a few years. Like if you're into fantasy football, like waiting for the Nico Collins breakout was like a yearly thing since even his like rookie year. So again, looking into the weeds to find these guys, like they're there, like a Puka, a Nico Collins, they're there. Some guys are going to be listed as that undraftable wide receiver 3s. They're going to be much more valuable than they're being ranked at because of the way that we can get them to where they need to get to. We have to discuss ahead of time and say like, okay, it could happen. So in terms like, and I've already talked about a lot of these guys on my first video. So Tank Dell, was a guy that I would have rated as in the wide receiver 2 range because maybe with high efficiency, he could finish the wide receiver 1 because of the Stephon Diggs trade. And I'm getting closer and closer to moving Stephon Diggs into the wide receiver 3 range. I think he's just going to be a safe guy in that offense. I don't think they're going to ask him to do the stuff that's going to, give him the ability to win a league anymore. That's just not what I think his skill set is going to be. It's going to be like, go get us a first down. Tank Dell's going to be like, go get us a touchdown. And Nico Collins is going to be like, go, be this big body X. So with Tank Dell, I do think that there's going to be, it's more likely that if he is healthy, and part of the reason why he has to be in this range is because guys coming off injury, you just don't know how they're going to end up being again. And, that was a pretty gruesome injury. So with Tank Dell, boom bust, wide receiver 3, he may have a good statistical season. He may end up losing you a lot of weeks if you try and run him as a 2. He may end up winning you your league if you try and run him as a 3. And then again, on top of that, like he may not be able to last the season. He's 165 pounds. So like that's where I would put him at. And he's at the top of the wide receiver 3s because he's attached to CJ Stroud and what we're expecting to be a high volume passing offense. So Michael Wilson, and there's a road to this. I liked him coming out of Stanford. They put a 3rd round pick onto him. He showed some signs last year. The biggest issue with Michael Wilson is actually not Trey McBride. It's not probably that the Cardinals are going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. It's probably not that he's bad at football or anything. He's probably really good at football. Well, we know he's really good at football. The problem that the Cardinals have is Kyler Murray is probably a better football player than he is a quarterback. And that was we were able to observe that. The statistics bear it out that he just wasn't very accurate down at the end of the season trying to go down the sideline to Hollywood Brown. And that would probably be where I would guess Michael Wilson's going to work into the boundary as that X, as that split end. And they're going to move Marvin Harrison around the formation. I still think that Trey McBride's probably going to be the number 1 in this offense. Marvin Harrison probably has the range of outcomes to be either the number 1 in the offense or the number 2 behind Trey McBride. There's still a road that we have to talk about with Michael Wilson, where he's the second-year guy. He's the wide receiver. Kyler Murray actually has a year to work with him. He finishes the number 1 in the offense, and that's with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. Even though Kyler Murray has yet to throw over 4,000 yards in the offense, there's still that road where he is, coming off of what he did last year with those 13 games that he played, 12 starts, 58 for 38, 3 touchdowns. I am not saying he's Nico Collins, but like you can tell that story where he's this year's Nico Collins, even though they're going to probably bring in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler is not CJ Stroud. That road is still there to even finish as a wide receiver 2, let alone maybe having a little bit more upside than that. These 3 guys that we have to talk about, Zay Jones, Gabe Davis, and Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is the guy to talk about first. Like, he finishes wide receiver 11 in 2022. Gabe Davis with the contract, not big money, but enough money. I mean, to mere mortals, though, it's a good a chunk of change. Again, a guy that I could probably see getting into that 120 target range, and if it's efficient, attached to Trevor Lawrence, maybe, Christian Kirk is probably going to be able to flirt with like 120 to 150 targets. Like, maybe, depends on how he's used. And then with Zay Jones, we're looking to go like 2022, 120 targets. Like, there is a road that for these guys, not just to be wide receiver twos, but to jump up and flirt with wide receiver one. It's just, which of these three guys are you going to pick? They all have their own skill set. Like, Christian Kirk, the vertical slot, Gabe Davis, like the big boundary guy, Zay Jones, the athlete. Like, your guess is as good as mine on who's going to work out with this. And that's on top of the fact that Trevor Lawrence may just be not that good at football. Jalen Hyatt, we have to put here, and this is a dart throw of all dart throws. Right now, like, maybe the number one is Darren Waller, if he can stay healthy. From a wide receiver standpoint, if I'm guessing who's going to be the number one wide receiver in this really bad offense, it's going to be Jalen Hyatt, attached to maybe Daniel Jones if he comes back. And I bring all this up when we talk about the draft, that the Giants have number 6 overall. If we're trying to guess, they're probably going to go wide receiver. It's going to be a little bit difficult to guess. Like, I don't necessarily like Malik Neighbors. I don't think he's bad. I think he's more a slot guy. I don't know, like, if that necessarily helps the Giants. Now you're looking at like the big body type guy, like a Doomsday that I really like. And I don't know if he's necessarily going to be there at 6 for the Giants. I could definitely see that he's going to be off the board when the Chargers go at 5. So trying to guess where these guys are going to go, that's why I just don't put them in places yet. But if we're guessing who has the highest upside to finish as their team's wide receiver 1 in this range, and again, all we're trying to do is like, hey, guy finishes wide receiver 1 in their offense, they're going to be fantasy relevant. Maybe it's Jalen Hyatt overall. Once we get out of that range of those guys, trying to guess if there's a dart throw wide receiver 1, now we're guys that are capped. They're definitely capped. Like, Hollywood Brown's not going to be the number 1 in that offense. I would be really surprised if it's not Rashee Rice. If it's not Rashee Rice, it's going to be Travis Kelce. Then it's Marquise Brown. You're probably looking at a range of outcomes of 2021 Baltimore, where he finishes wide receiver 24, with maybe a few more touchdown catches, less targets. That's what you're kind of looking at with Marquise Brown. Again, that's a wide receiver 2. I'm not going to shake a stick at that. If I can pay wide receiver 3 prices to get him to find out, I will. Same thing with DeAndre Hopkins over the age apex. Maybe the offense changes. Don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1, but like, it would not surprise me that he can put up a very similar stat line to what he did in 2023, if the offense and Will Levis are what they could be, right? Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs, I could definitely tell the story where both these guys finished in that 120, 130 target range with some touchdowns. They'd use both these guys in the red zone. It is going to be a good offense. There may be more value to taking Jaden Reed or Romeo Doubs as wide receiver 3s and hoping you get 2s than what you may end up having to pay for Christian Watson to be a bust. Christian Watson, I think I might still have him pulled up here. Christian Watson, and we have to talk about Christian Watson, even though I have him in the wide receiver 2 range, this high efficiency type of player where he's going to score these touchdowns. Like, they're really difficult to evaluate from a fantasy perspective, especially with roster construction. They're going to lose you as many games as they win you. And slotting them in to be like my 2 in a very strong roster, or very strong lineup, will win me leagues. Slotting them in to be my flex overall with a very strong roster will win me leagues. So like, guys like this, I don't necessarily think that like Dobbs has that high upside. He's going to probably be a red zone target. Jaden Reed may have a little bit more quote unquote juice in him. And again, they're going to be attached to this really good offense. They could return on investment if you're going to be taking them at wide receiver 3 range. All right. Jackson Smith-Njigba. Remember that Tyler Lockett's going to be over the age apex. I think Tyler Lockett is not draftable at this point. Even though I think he's going to be relatively like good, like poor man's Stephon Diggs would not surprise me. Jackson Smith and Jigma probably going to be a little bit limited. We're getting up there in the possibility of him, getting that 120, 130, maybe 150 targets. They're going to be less valuable targets in this offense. You have the road, the story to talk about how Jackson Smith JSN finishes as a you know PPR monster in like those scammer leagues. Like I could definitely see that occurring. We with like a huge reception year. And let's see to finish, Jameson Williams got to be in this tier. I think that at this point he's going to be a bust overall, but again, when we're looking at the possibility of putting this Christian Watson season, and in 2022, Christian Watson did help basically like win a lot of leagues by just being very hyper efficient at the end of his season. And you see like the limited time that he was actually healthy, where he's just scoring touchdowns. So again, like I could definitely see Jameson Williams falling into that role where he's in a good offense and they just give him the limited opportunities they give him are very efficient and he scores touchdowns. He's going to be in there throwing that late dart throw to build a roster with that boom bust guy. I tend to stay away from them, but I have to acknowledge that there is value in this and there is ways to win leagues by doing that type of stuff. All right. This road or this tier are guys that like they're really going to be difficult to get you there. Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, there is going to be that wide receiver 2 type outcome for one of these two guys in that Saints offense potentially. And again, you have another hyper efficient guy in Rashid Shaheed with maybe a little bit more uptick in opportunity. Maybe it's A.T. Perry that gets there. He could be that red zone guy. There is a road where they're going to have some value. And again, I think most of these guys are going to be like deeper leagues. Trey Palmer, on the other hand, like this is a really deep dart throw. There is a road where Mike Evans takes a step back because of age, and Chris Godwin is just out of gas, right? Because Chris Godwin in and of itself is getting up there towards the age apex. Let's see. I'll pull this up. I should have been prepared for you guys. So he's going to be 29 in February. So he's going to play the season at 28, it looks like. And what we're looking at, and he's already had a lot of injuries. So like there is a road where Trey Palmer ends up being the guy who leads the offense. I would probably put my money, if that were to occur, on Cade Otton, but there is a road where it's Trey Palmer. He has the measurables. There is a little bit of draft capital put into him. There is a road for this to happen, especially in deeper leagues. And then to finish with Adam Thielen, it looks like the Panthers are not trying to throw away Bryce Young. There is a road where Adam Thielen does finish again with about 137 targets. They're not very efficient, but you're looking at like something, a shake and bake, wide receiver 25, not something to throw a stick at. If he's like outside of like the top 9 rounds, this is a guy that I would be looking to pull the trigger on if I need some wide receiver depth. I already talked about Christian Watson, talked about the Giants depth chart and the Packers depth chart. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Packers depth chart again, because this is a little crazy. Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Bo Melton, Romeo Dobbs. It's going to be really hard to parse out how much they're going to be, divvying out the opportunities there. So like, I don't know outside of Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love if I would want to be taking any of those guys and having a good idea where they're going to go. So the biggest thing with these wide receiver 3s, a lot of these guys that are wide receivers are going to end up going in this tier. I may end up pushing up Marvin Harrison by the time the draft starts as high as like wide receiver 12. It depends on if I think he can return on that investment. So if he's wide receiver 12, I would be guessing that like maybe his range of outcomes is like wide receiver 8. And I think that's really hard to get to. So I would feel better with Marvin Harrison Jr. if I was putting him probably around that tier of age-related decline wide receivers like Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp. That's going to be like mid-20s, which is probably going to take him off the board in a lot of leagues. People are going to go up and jump up and get him. Again, doesn't have the best quarterback situation with Kyler. And then Michael Wilson does kind of scare me against him. And I definitely think the guy that's going to lead the team in targets is going to be Trey McBride, the unicorn. So like, I just don't know how much I would really be pushing him up there to expect that he's going to be that huge alpha, as they put it. That's where I would put him. Malik Neighbors, I think, is maybe more a little bit of a slot guy. I like Omadunze a lot, and if he goes to the Chargers, like I would probably even put him above Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point, because again, the opportunity for him is going to be better than Marvin Harrison going there with the two other guys that they have there. Like Roma Dunze would be battling with Josh Palmer and like Hayden Hurst for opportunities. I don't think Quentin Johnston's going to be in that range. I don't know how much I really like some of the Texas wide receivers. I don't know how much I really like their top end ability. So it's going to be difficult to see where I go. Though I like Brian Thomas. I do think he's limited. I don't know how much I'd like him in rookie draft. Again, Xavier Leggett, who I really like at that size and speed. But I think he's going to be raw. I don't think they're going to put them into positions where they have to win. Lad McConkey is a guy that I think it would be like. I think he's going to be a cap ceiling wide receiver too. I don't think he's going to go anyplace and just get this massive target share. So like if he gets to the right situation where they need a shake and bake wide receiver too, he's attached to a good offense. It's going to be high passing volume. Like he's going to be like flirting with league winner. Depending on how far he gets pushed up the board. Let's see, Ricky Pearsall's going to be like really good if he goes to the right situation. He doesn't have to just be a slot, but like I really like the possibility that you could get like 120 target guy if he goes to the right offense. Roman Wilson might be a really sneaky guy depending on where he goes. Malachi Corley, I like. Javon Baker, I like. There are guys still in this draft, and it just depends. Like Johnny Wilson's going to be ridiculous if he goes someplace. There are going to be guys that like they're more likely they're going to take away opportunity from some of the other guys then they actually are going to be fantasy relevant. And it really depends on where they go in the draft. Like Cardinals, Harrison, I'm going to guess like Roma Dunze there. I don't know if I like the Giants pulling the trigger on Neighbors. I don't know if that necessarily is like the way that I would go. They might decide the Giants that they're going to go quarterback at that point. If we're guessing, they might get the quarterback. So like quarterback 4. And some of the quarterbacks like that I like, again, because I'm a coach, are a little bit different than like maybe where they like if let's see, best available. If the Redskins go Drake May, which I think may occur. If what's his face? If Jaden Daniels goes to the Patriots, that's going to be like a train wreck. The Patriots are so bad. I can maybe see JJ McCarthy going there and having to be like a game manager. Same thing with Bo Nix. Like they probably have limited upside. Like Michael Penix is going to be another guy that like may have ridiculous upside if he goes to the right spot from a fantasy perspective. I don't care if they're good players or not. And like Sam Hartman's another one that like if he goes to the right spot, like he could start. Where's the other one? Somebody else. Anyway, like these are the type of things we're looking at. So like rounds, like I'm gonna guess Drake May. I can't see how the Patriots like. I could maybe see they go out and get like McCarthy. I don't know if they would pull the trigger on Jaden there. Like Harrison, Roma Dunze. I'm gonna guess quarterback because I don't know how they would necessarily like maybe they trade out. Maybe not anybody that's fantasy relevant goes there. Nobody fantasy relevant that goes there. Like the Bears at 9, like I would guess that they're going to have to go tight end or tackle. The Jets are going to be really like the Jets. They're going to have to do everything they can to win now. So like they've already built the offensive line. So like not fantasy relevant. Probably not fantasy relevant. The Broncos, like you're looking at quarterback. They need wide receiver. Another guy, as I go off talk at 19 minutes, so that I want to sort of talk about is good old Brock Bowers. So I think it was the bootleg guys were talking about the best comp for Brock Bowers is Kyle Juszczyk, and I think that's like really good. That Kyle Juszczyk hasn't been used how he should have been used in the NFL. Kyle Juszczyk should be a Hall of Famer. He's that good, even on special teams. The way to use Brock Bowers is like Christian McCaffrey. where they're moving him around the field and trying to get matchups with other teams. So like Brock Bowers, if he was used correctly, he'd be like 200 touches, which would just blow the tight end market out of the water. He'd be getting like carries and design passing plays, and he'd be like matched up on small corners, and then he'd go like work the slot and bully guys. Like he's not a tight end, especially at the NFL level. But like if he was used correctly, I don't see them magically turning him into a running back or anything stupid like that. But like if they were using him correctly in that offense and then trying to figure out where he would go, and I realize this is not wide receiver threes, but like that would be something to look at. And I don't know what offense would really be built to deal to maximize a guy like Brock Bowers. So like trying to guess where Brock Bowers would go and then they would use him correctly, like that would be amazing if the Chargers actually took Brock Bowers at 5 and then used him that way. But I don't think the Chargers are going to pass. They need a wide receiver more than they need that like kind of gimmicky guy that I think he might end up being used at the NFL level. So trying to guess where like teams need wide receivers, maybe the Raiders, maybe the Broncos would go wide receiver. Saints, I don't think necessarily need one. Colts, I don't think need one. Uh, Seahawks don't need one. Jacksonville, maybe if there's a right big body guy uh, on the table. Like I don't see like Mitchell going there. I don't see him falling that far. And I definitely don't see Brian Robinson Jr. If Brian Robinson Jr. fell to that spot, like I definitely think they would pull the trigger on him, but I just don't see like some of these guys falling that far there. If some of these guys start falling in the draft, I think teams will trade up for them. Maybe the Rams would go out and get like a big body guy, realizing that Cooper Kupp's going to be a little long in the Chiefs. Bengals maybe because like depending on what goes on with T. Higgins, they're going to need someone to keep the pressure off of Jamar Chase. If they don't like IL I think they like IL a lot. Um, Steelers need a number 2. Dolphins need to replace Tyreek Hill. Eagles maybe not. Vikings maybe not. Cowboys need a number 2. Packers don't need any wide receivers. Buccaneers maybe have to plan for those 2 guys leaving. I don't think the Cardinals will go 2 wide receivers in the first round. Buffalo Bills, I would definitely see trading up. And if they go out and they get the right guy, if they trade up, I could definitely see that being interesting. Like a Buffalo Bills, they need those bigger body guys. I don't know where they're going to go out and find them, but like that's where if they had like a Gabe Davis, still they don't have Gabe Davis, but if they had a Gabe Davis, that's where like a Lad McConkey or a what's his face, Ricky Pearsall would be really interesting from a fantasy perspective to get that higher volume, like 120, 150 targets. But that's what Dalton Kincaid can do in the offense already. They just need a guy to keep coverage off those guys. And then Lions don't need anybody like that. Ravens, they don't need anybody. Well, they need a big body wide receiver like that. Right now, I think it's Rashad Bateman that would be running in that role. San Francisco doesn't need a guy. Kansas City needs maybe a slot, the right slot. But again, like I don't necessarily think Kansas City needs. They don't need wide receivers. If they can Frankenstein together a wide receiver 3. They already paid for Hollywood Brown. They have Rashee Rice. They don't need that type of guy. They could probably go someplace else in that like offensive line or defense, something like that. So anyway, that's about all I got. Tomorrow, I hopefully will get the actual rankings together, so we're ready to ride into the draft and then have the draft just completely blow up the rankings. But yeah, those are my thoughts.